Good Wednesday to you, everybody in Comp 731. Welcome again to week 13 and our review of week 12. Let's get this organized. A little coffee and a little dark chocolate. Now, I am your sufficiently caffeinated communication instructor. Okay, let's take a look at what you did. Let me get this out of my mouth. All right, last week, week 12, look at some of your answers. And yeah, okay, this isn't going to work. Note to self, don't eat chocolate while doing videos, Okay, let's take a look at some of your answers, what you said, see what we can add to it. A quick follow-up from yesterday's video. And, I mentioned some people had asked about the date for the final exam. Again, let me ask you, if it's currently, slotted for December 3rd, 4th. If you would prefer to take the exam on December 6th and 7th, simply email me and let me know. And, we can make the change. I have to have this exam finished, or that is, I have to have you finish this exam before the 8th. I've got just an enormous amount to do before grades are due. And when it's the end of the class. Okay, so let me know. Okay. We've been reading Neff and Moss. And, this isn't a new book, but I really like what they're up to because they get at some central issues if you're going to work in the not-for-profit space. Okay. And so question number one, and I picked this question on purpose because if you're going to raise money, if you're going to work for a not-for-profit, or if you're going to run a not-for-profit, just like any business, it's life or death for you to know who your customers are, and customers in this case means your donors, and where are they? How do you reach them? What spaces are they in? Okay, so given that, question number one, what is the shift that changed local fundraising forever? Do you see evidence of this in the place where you work or live? Please explain. Candace, let's take you first because you went first. So in chapter 1, Neff and Moss, they reveal that what they feel caused a shift and changed local fundraising forever. The shift occurred in the 1970s when women went into the workforce. And Neff and Moss explained before women entered the workforce in the year half the 20th century, primary means of local fundraising for not-for-profits was through direct solicitation. In other words, people would go through their personal networks for donations. And this model of marketing still exists today. Some call it pyramid scheme, where you network through your existing group of friends and try to get them to come in and buy product and then in turn sell product. But that's not for profit. I understand that. Okay. So this isn't, personal networking is not gone as a mean by which to solicit funds, but as the sort of primary driver for local fundraising, it's gone. Because we'll go back to Candace. However, once women joined the workforce, there was less and less guarantee that there would be someone home to answer the door. Women also became less involved with the local communities, thereby reducing their family's connection with the community. Neff and Moss explains that in the 2000s, we begin to see similar shifts occur thanks to new technologies, which paved the way for modified ways of fundraising for nonprofits. And that last bit, although it wasn't the focus of that particular section, is really important to keep in mind, because now people are reconnecting, okay? But they're reconnecting through mediated spaces and content, and how they're connecting and how they feel connected and stay connected is changing, is different. I mean, quite literally in the fullest sense of the word, when when a an encounter, a connection is less personable, like as in, knock, knock, knock on the door. Hi, I'm raising money for, I'm selling these candy bars for my school band or fill in the blank. Okay, there's a personableness to that. Across the mediated space, that personableness goes away. That challenge is something that is the major driver in how fundraising and fundraising appeals are being run. But back to you, Candace. I can attest to the shift, as many of us can. Growing up, I remember being a Girl Scout and going door to door selling cookies to raise money for my troop. I remember doing similar forms of solicitation for school fundraisers. And stay-at-home moms were there to answer the door. Today, I have witnessed the shift from simply seeing fewer kids on my doorsteps year after year, or fewer kids anywhere. Alternatively, I see more people fundraising on social media and everywhere else or anywhere else, from friends posting me GoFundMe fundraisers to help their family members during a difficult time, to missionaries reaching out for support via Facebook. As Neff and Moss point out, however, social media was not the first piece of technology to impact the not-for-profit industry. For example, I sometimes get phone calls from local political party volunteers asking me to get involved, or text messages from local ministries asking me to attend their upcoming fundraising events. All this to say, local fundraising has now gone digital and no longer is so local. Very true, very true. One of the interesting trends in this mediated fundraising space is able to have a productive conversion ratio, that is asks to actual donations. You have to crank up the number of asks, because the number of responses in this non-personable space goes down. When I work with clients and put together email campaigns or digital fundraising campaigns, I tell them right up front, single digit response rate is, and I don't mean money. I mean actually somebody actually just looking at whatever it is you sent out. Single digit response rate is the norm, somewhere between 2 and 3%. If you hit 5%, that's really good. And if you're above 5%, you should be doing a dance around the room. Okay, that's a much, 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 much lower percentage by way of response rate. And then the conversion rate is even lower still than person-to-person fundraising, that is somebody knocking on a door. So it's forcing changes on the part of the not-for-profit. Also, on the part of the would-be donor, it's forcing changes, because well, I suppose I'm going to say it's inevitable, but nothing's inevitable until it happens. But it just seems to be baked into the system that in order to get a ratio of conversion that makes the effort worthwhile, they crank out the number of solicitations. It just goes way up because they know the conversion rate is going to be way low. So if you send out 100 solicitations, you're probably going to get zero. You've got to send out 1,000 or 500,000 or 1,000,000. And duplication is baked into the system. That is, and you may have experienced this. You keep getting texts from the same organization, whether it's political or social or religious, and you hit that number, and then diggity do, at some period of time, there it is again, coming from a different number. All right, that's the organization, and really it's usually their third party companies that do this, that are using VMPs to bounce the send around. So it looks like it's coming from different numbers, but it keeps going back and back and back into the data pool, that is the total pool of contact numbers and persons that they have, in order to get a return. What that tends to do is annoy the would-be donor. And what you don't want to do, you don't want to annoy the donor. It's challenging enough to get the donor's attention, get the donor to understand what the the current program, the mission is, and then get them to donate. Right, all of those are steps in which you're drawing closer the relationship between your organization and the donor. Absolutely fatal to that tightening of the relationship is the donor just being turned off by your organization because it keeps calling and it keeps texting from different numbers, using a VPN. And you can't get past the let us introduce ourselves to this is what we do and we think this aligns with your values to this is the current program to thank you for giving us the money. You can't even get past that first step if you turn the donor off. If they just oh God, these guys again, whack whack whack. So this is if you're going to get into this space and you're going to get into this work, be aware that is a significant challenge, and there's sort of a downward spiral cycle of net negative gains as the alienation of people in the database who may have been perfectly willing to become a donor for a given cause as that goes up. Okay, changing face of what's going on. Question number 2. Neff and Moss argue that the big three methods of Lean, Sigma 6, and TQM employed by different nonprofit companies are not the best way to promote innovation in not-for-profits. Why do they conclude this? And what do they recommend instead? Okay. Then I asked you to agree or disagree with the argument. Now, this question was a wee vague because it presupposes that you know what Lean, Sigma 6, and TQM happen to be. And I left it that way on purpose. I mean, not only the author is going to explain it a little bit, but I wanted you to do a little digging. Okay. And so each of these are, what could be called business methodologies that are used to improve business performance by reducing redundancies and errors and these sorts of things. And if you work in the business world, they're standard. I mean, let me see if I can remember Sigma 6. It's the 6 of them. It's to define the issue, to measure the process. Okay, so it's a model to bring efficiency. So define what the process is, measure how it's supposed to go, analyze that measurement and that process, improve on the defined process, and then control the execution, and then repeat, and then repeat. And the idea is through, this is Sigma 6, through this process, you're continuously improving, making the process more efficient. But is this good for not-for-profits? Cheryl, let's go to you. Neff and Moss believe innovation is a winning strategy for, I'm sorry, I jumped to the wrong question. Let's save your response, Cheryl. Let's go to you, Charles, for this question number 2. Neff and Moss argue that big three methods of Lean, Sigma 6, and TQM employed by for-profit companies are not the best way to promote innovation in nonprofits because of the different needs between corporations and nonprofits. That does not mean, however, that Lean, Sigma 6, TQM cannot be applicable within a not-for-profit organization. Nonprofits organization require structure and must, to some degree, follow standard business practices in their process for accounting, staff training, fundraising, preparing community packets, et cetera, et cetera. Then the TQM, by the way, stands for Total Quality Management. The system approach focused on refining the process rather than innovating and improving the bigger picture for the entire organization. The critical point, and this is what you Chuck's recommend they put in, said the critical point goes back to the focus on people, and not-for-profits are not system-driven. They are people-driven and can be a bit messy. Innovation and experimentation can be messy, and they often fail, and the innovator must return to the drawing board. Innovation requires time to think and experiment, time that efficiency experts might consider wasted. Exactly. In other words, the problem with things like a Lean, as the name suggests, Sigma 6, Total Quality Management, is their hyper focus on efficiency as the main thing. Not-for-profits, by virtue of what they focus on quite frequently, they're not efficiency focused. I mean, there's a difference between, say, and that doesn't mean that, that they can't and they shouldn't be very careful about how the money that they gather is spent, or how they spend money to get money. That's not what this is talking about. But they said there's a very different approach to, say, distributing water in arid parts of Tanzania. That is, setting up, getting a deal with a supplier, setting up a trucking company, getting the water delivered, and then rotating it. That's different than digging a well that will be used by 3 villages in the Maasai territory. And although, yes, you have to have operational and fiscal, meaning, the money, efficiency, the bottom line is not efficiency. And so, this is actually one of the things that I enjoy about not-for-profits, because on the one hand, the very reason that you're there is not the bottom line of efficiency, but minus a careful eye to efficiency, you won't be there. You just won't continue as a not-for-profit. So striking that balance, to me, is an interesting problem in that space. Okay, question number 3. I jumped this one, so I'm going to jump back. In chapter 3, Neff and Moss present innovation as a strategy for success. Do you agree or disagree that innovation makes a good strategy? Okay, now let's go to you, Cheryl. Neff and Moss believe innovation, where'd you go? Innovation is a winning strategy for not-for-profits, and I agree with them if the organization has the tools to incorporate innovation. Put a bookmark in that, because we're going to come back to that, Cheryl. One area identified by the authors is through innovative means to look at current performance beyond the annual report. Boston's Consulting Group offers that innovation is key for not-for-profits, but not all of them have the capacity to improve and compete for philanthropic dollars. It's a great article that does favor to innovation, but with caveat of having resources. Okay, and this is the back to the sort of you have to have a good chunk of money to make money. I want to caution you about that. I mean, and Cheryl, this was a good answer. You're pulling from what Boston Consulting Group happens to say. But you could be innovative in the process of your not-for-profit without a lot of resources. Now, and I'm sorry if I mentioned this or I didn't mention this before, but I want to recommend to you a book by a fellow named Dan Pallotta, and you can check his TED Talk as well. I'm not down with some of his politics, but Pallotta makes some very good points in his book and in his TED Talk, and that is that not-for-profits are punished, and in terms of the tax code and how they're viewed by donors, he's absolutely right. They're punished for innovating, specifically when it comes to advertising. And he makes the point, just to sort of put his TED Talk into a nutshell. He's like, look, if you were asked to run a campaign to raise money to help fund breast cancer research, and you said, okay, and you came to a donor and said, here's what I'm going to do. You got, one or two, he sort of sets up this bifurcation. So on the one hand, you can tell the donor, for every dollar that you give, I'm going to send 99 cents of that dollar to fund the research. And there'll be 1 penny left over for very meager administrative costs. Or if you said to the donor, for every dollar that you give, I'm going to send 70 cents of that to fund the breast cancer research. And then I'm going to take the 30 cents and pay for high quality staff and advertising to raise another dollar from the dollar that you gave. So actually every dollar that you give, although only 70 cents goes over there, will result in another 70 cents. That is a nearly 50% increase from $1 to, actually 150% increase from $1 from 70 cents effective use to 70 more cents. That is 140 cents. Do you understand? And he poses the question, which do you think is the most effective way to raise money to fund the breast cancer research? And it's obvious that if you take the larger share, use it wisely, use it in a way that's innovative to raise more money, to bring more donors to the process, and ultimately the total amount that you raise is higher because you've used a portion of what you raised to go get more than it is if you take 99 cents and throw it over there. And he's absolutely right. But both in the tax code and in the public perception, the people go, oh, wait a minute, why are you taking money for yourself? Why are you paying advertisers? This should all be going for breast cancer research. Shame on you. All right. It discourages innovation and retards, delays, slows down the effectiveness of not-for-profits. Okay, question number 4. According to Neff and Moss, which drives which innovation of technology? Candace, I already read from you, but in the first line of your response, you said this is a bit of a trick question. You're absolutely right. It was a bit of a trick question. So Rinesh, let's look at you. Both drive each other. You say that is this question of which comes first, technology, innovation. This is what Neff and Moss says. Technology allows innovation to take place, accelerate, and scale. Innovative ideas create solutions in the form of technology. And I would argue that innovative ideas spark thoughts about how to repurpose and reuse technology in ways that haven't been done before. Create solutions in the form of technology. If an innovation does not get implemented and takes off, then the innovation does not materialize. Innovation becomes innovation when innovations, I think you left an S off of here, become innovations when they were applied and delivered the impact they were designed to drive. Suppose Not-for-Profit Technology Education Network, NTE, and virtual webinar project for Foursquare app is not utilized. In that case, the problem-solving phenomena do not occur, or the innovation is sometimes delayed. Getting people interested in webinars as a learning opportunity took a couple of years, which later allowed them to connect with larger groups. He uses that as an example. That's exactly right. Yes, it was a trick. It was a trick question, but you got it, all of you. All right, folks, good on you. That's about 20 minutes. That's all I wanted to do for this video. Good job. Keep working on those papers. Keep studying for that exam. If you have any questions, please email me. Email me about your date preference for the final exam. December 3rd or 4th, December 6th or 7th. It's all up to you. All right. Thinking about you, praying about you. I want you to have a great, great weekend. As always, I will see you on Canvas. Bye-bye.